I want to thank everyone for coming here tonight to Books and Books in Coral Gables, Florida. We have an absolutely remarkable event. It's a closing evening of an event that is called the Bold Beauty Project. The Bold Beauty Project was started by Shelly Baer, and the co-director is Ritvo, MD, based in Miami. I'm Patrice Samara, and I want to thank you all for coming tonight. We want to thank Books and Books in Coral Gables for hosting this event. It is really a singular experience. We have an exhibit of extraordinary photography. I know all of you have seen it. It is a project unlike any other. Photographers and women with disabilities have paired up and have created photography to change and shatter expectations of disabilities. We want to thank all of you for being here tonight, and we want to thank various people for being here. This is a 360 experience that is being recorded in virtual reality. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Shelly, and she's going to explain why this got started, how it got started, and how everyone can be involved. Thank you, Shelly.
I got it. Thank you so much, Patrice. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
And thank you so much to Books and Books for hosting this exhibit. And I'm so excited to see all you guys. It's a full house, so thank you so much for coming on out tonight on a Thursday evening, braving the traffic, crazy Miami traffic. So we want this to be very informal and very interactive, take just questions from y'all, but I can give you like a brief overview of how we began this and why we began this. It began actually over 10 years ago when I was on the board of the Center for Independent Living, a nonprofit that helps people with disabilities become more independent. And they talked about doing a fundraising event for the center and using women with disabilities, photographing them nude for a calendar. And it didn't get a lot of good feedback from the board. They were totally against that idea. And then we changed it to an exhibit, a photography exhibit. And it took off from there, and it was so successful. And I was asked to be one of the models. And if you had asked me 10 years ago prior to that event, I would have said, hell no, I'm not posing. I'm not comfortable with how I look. I never looked in a full-length mirror. I grew up with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. I got it when I was 3 years old. So it's like I've never not had a disability or an illness. And I just was so nervous in the beginning about doing that experience. And then I embraced the opportunity to be a model for a day. As Patrice had said, every model was paired with a photographer, and they worked very closely as how they define themselves as beautiful. And I jumped at the opportunity to have that experience, and it changed my life. I started looking at myself in a full-length mirror. I started seeing myself as beautiful and kind of owning it, like stepping into a new place of self-acceptance and beauty. And I kept thinking, well, people stare at me anyway. I'm noticeable, I'm seen. So why not have them stare at a beautiful image? So that's how it started, that's how it evolved. We gathered amazing photographers and 20 women with physical and sensory disabilities. So we always wanted a diverse group of women, people who had a physical disability and or sensory, who were deaf and or blind, because we thought that was really important to have the diversity of Miami. And also different ages and different ethnicities. So we really wanted it to be broad and reflective of the community where we were in. So that's how it began. Fast forward many years later, and we changed our name, and we replicated it in Washington, D.C. Then we did our 10-year anniversary back here in Miami, and some of our models are here tonight, Kat and Carrie, and some of our photographers are here, Maria, Mary Beth, I think she had to leave, and Eva, and Joy, oh, I'm so sorry, Joy. And Eva came on as our co-director, and it just has taken off, and I never could let it go. Like, even though we ended the exhibition 11 years ago, it just stayed with me. It could never leave my heart. This was a labor of love for me. I have a full-time job at UM School of Medicine, but this was always like in the back of my mind. It changed my life on so many levels. I got a TED Talk because of it. I met Josh Yellen from UM, who introduced me to Eva. And that's how Eva came on to kind of help expand this and broaden this and keep this momentum going. We replicated it in Philadelphia back in the spring of April. So we really see it as a replication model now that we have successes. You know, some of our successes here in Miami and DC. So we incorporated as a nonprofit. So we are a nonprofit now. And we just see the possibilities are immense and growing. As right now we're thinking of we are replicating it in Texas, and we have interest from Montreal and Boston and Atlanta as well. So we really see this as an opportunity to create new dialogues around disability and beauty and sensuality, like redefine paradigms of beauty to really change the dialogue and the conversation of how people experience beauty and disability. I know some of the women here really have been changed by having this opportunity to be a model for a day and really define how they see themselves as beautiful. So I feel like I'm rambling on and on because I could go on and on about this project because it's changed my life in so many ways. And do we want to have Kat, one of our models, say some words? We have
Kat,
real testimonials here.
Okay, we're going to have Kat, and then we're going to have Eva speak a little bit. So,
And-
Kat,
and
thank
Joy,
you so much for
and Joy.
coming tonight.
Oh, no
She wants
problem.
Here we go.
Hi, everybody. So, my photo's not here tonight. It was considered a little too risque for posting.
But they can see it online.
You guys can see it online, but I won't tell you which one it is. You have to guess. So, I don't even know where to begin with my experience with the Bold Beauty Project. I mean, it came to me through Shelly. She asked me to be a model, and I just kind of looked at her. I was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "That's so cool." And then I met my photographer, Pedro Del Guy, and he's this really like energetic person, and I'm super hyper, but he was like on another level, and I was like, his energy's so like infectious. It was awesome to meet him, and we met like 2-3 times, and we kind of just talked about my sex life a lot. He wanted to know like what my experiences were with men, and I told him the good, the bad, and the ugly. And one of the things that kind of stood out to him was people think that I'm really tiny and that I can't handle certain things, and you know, that's kind of annoying. And he was like, well, we're going to change that. So he dressed me up as a dominatrix queen, and it was the most liberating experience of my life, honestly. I mean, I will say that because I'm a children's book author, it was way out of my like comfort zone. But you know, I definitely had the giggles at first, and then he told me, he's like, all right, stop giggling and look at the camera like I'm your next victim. And at that moment, I just went into character, and it was amazing. Like, literally for like a month, I was like, when can I do this again? Like, is there any time that I can like meet you again and we can just like keep taking photos? It's really a life-changing thing, and I hope you guys love all the photos that are here, because all the women that are a part of it are such special people. So just please enjoy the night, and hope you guys have fun.
Thank you, Pat.
You mentioned the photographer and wanting to see him again. We do have one of our photographers here. Would you mind if I put you on the spot, Maria, and you told us a little bit about your experience? Because Maria did capitalize on the wanting to do it again. Would you tell everybody?
Sure. Hi, good evening, everyone. Should I come over here?
Yeah, come on up. It's VR. I know, but when she said that about photographers, I couldn't help but bring you up here.
Thank you. It was an incredible experience for me, very humbling, and sorry, it's okay. It was wonderful. I had actually had the wonderful opportunity to photograph Shelly during her wedding, so that for me was
That's
a
how we
huge,
found you.
you know, so that for me was incredible in and itself. But being a photographer for Bold and Beauty, the Bold Beauty project was, it also changed me in my perspective of as a woman, it was very humbling, and I'm a little.
Tell us about Lorinda. You had a model that was named Lorinda, and tell us a little bit about the shoot and what you guys have decided to do afterwards.
So Lorinda wanted to be photographed in a boudoir style, which I do a lot, and it was great for her because she was very nervous at first, but then she kind of, you know, started feeling a little bit more comfortable, and I photographed her in a bustier with pearls around her neck, and it was beautiful. It was really beautiful, and it was challenging for me as a photographer too. You know, with positions and all that stuff is challenging, but wonderful and exciting for me because it's relating to your book. It's interesting because I felt that when you do something really exciting and empowering for someone, for women, it's kind of reciprocated, you know, and I feel empowered myself to the fact that I can empower someone else. So it's a wonderful feeling, and that feeling is what was, you know, what I want to feel again. You know,
and you've developed a friendship with her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I'm getting together with her soon because her and I decided that I'm going to photograph her once a year, in a different way. And it was just for us, like for her and I. It doesn't have to be, you know, it's just something that she really enjoyed and something that I want to do. So.
And something we'd be honored to share on, you know, our website or our Facebook page, because the idea of the project isn't one day. We're not creating an art exhibit to create an art exhibit. We're creating our exhibit to change lives. And your life has been changed, Lorinda's life has been changed, and the fact that you guys have created this bond is so meaningful. And so many people in this room we've created bonds with that wouldn't be there. So one of Shelly's ideas was to create a community of bold beauties and empower women with disabilities. But I always tell Shelly it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
Because in this room we do have some people with disabilities, but we also have photographers who are volunteers, and we also have just fans of the project. So there's a power in everybody coming together, because people with disabilities shouldn't be segregated or on the side. We should all be together, and that's why I think it's so beautiful the way you've struck up a relationship. And Pedro, I know, came and spoke at one of our events, how moved he was by photographing you. So we try to keep things going. And one of the things that I've noticed in the years that I've been with Shelly on the project is society is changing a lot. And we always post, you know, the innovative projects that we see, and there's more and more bringing people with disabilities into the mainstream. Joy, and my favorite is now Target has a line called Cat and Jack of special clothes for people with disabilities. So it really, there is a shift, and every time I say to Shelly, you are changing the world, because this project does bring things to awareness that people aren't aware of. You know, what I always hear, because I've stood with the project many hours at Art Boca, Art Palm Beach, Art Concept during Art Basel, and people stay and they see the photos, but they also read the narratives. And for a lot of people who don't have disabilities, they're stunned. Wow, this woman with this disability went to graduate school. She's working as a therapist. She's married. She's running her own company. Look at Carrie. My God, the woman is changing the planet. She's got an incredible documentary called May I Help You? That's Emmy Award winning. And she just is a powerhouse. I would not have known Carrie, even though we live in the same building, were it not for the Bold Beauty Project. So the power is just growing and growing and growing. And that's why it's very important that we come together and we support each other. Joy, are you willing to come up and say a moment about the project and what it has meant for you?
Joy is a model, and I think she has a little bit of a story to tell.
She's got a lot of stories. I always get accused of playing favoritism to my daughter, but you know what? Guilty.
Hey, she brought me into this world, so I have a right.
So she has two images here today. One was supposed to be here in the hall, which she'll tell you about, and then at literally the 12th hour, Patrice said, we need something in the room we're speaking in. So I said, I don't have anything. She said, well, pull the one off your wall. So we pulled this off of our entryway wall, and that's here. So she has two stories to tell you about her Bold Beauty experience.
So, Joy, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So, tell us about your experience. What was it like being a model for Bold Beauty?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to word that.
Do you want to talk about this image or
Yeah,
a
you
little
can
bit
talk
about the other
just whole
image?
experience. What was it like? I know you were paired with a photographer,
Yeah.
and it was a new experience for you.
Well, so the first time around, me being mom's daughter, she always brings me to all these different events and projects that she's on. So when she started the project,
Sorry to distract you.
sorry, I have ADD. You couldn't tell. So.
Do you want to do the interview?
Yeah. So she told me one day that she was going to bring me in on this, that we were going to have a photographer come over and do a little shoot day. And I was very skeptical at first because I'm very shy and I don't like photographs. And honestly, I never really liked my body. I hated the way I looked in photographs. And, I always thought I walked weird, and then, so, the night before, okay, so let me back up a little bit. How did we meet him? We met him first to talk about it? Oh, no, I just decided and he went with it? Oh, okay. So, one of the most beautiful, images I remember seeing growing up was, the girl in American Beauty with the rose petals in the bath. So I decided that if I'm going to see myself as pretty, I want something like that. So the night before, we went to 2 stores. And I found the most perfect outfit. And then the next day, and that's mom's. That worked perfectly with it. We had a whole team come over. Robert, my photographer, brought over his little, how old is he, 5?
I think it was 7.
6, 7. His little assistant that he had, who was the cutest little boy. The photographer's mom came. Robert even brought a model for me to shoot because he's forward thinking and cool like that. And we have dubbed that day a love fest because it was just the most magical, beautiful day filled with love and laughter and happiness. And I really think that my brain was rewired that day because I finally saw myself as everybody else, I guess, has told me is beautiful. And I decided to get brave after that, and I decided I would try online dating, and I went online, and, 2.25 years later, there's my boyfriend sitting right there. And Robert's become a father figure in my life and very, very special. And I am 4 classes away from finishing college now, which is not anything I ever thought I would do. Super excited and super proud. And none of this would have happened if it weren't for Shelly, Mom, and Robert. And I'm just eternally grateful to all of you. And I love you so much. I'm going to start crying if I continue talking.
Thank you, Joy. That was very beautiful. I share the story of Robert Zuckerman in my book, Bekindr, because it was one of those absolutely magical days, and it's a day that's so nice for us to think back to and remember. And it was nice that we got to take this image off of our wall and bring it. And since we're in VR, hi, Robert. Everybody, please send their love out to Robert Zuckerman, who's not with us today because he's in rehab, and he's been going through an awful lot. So we want to send out our best wishes to you, Robert, and our gratitude is eternal for helping Marissa mature into the woman that she's become. Anybody else who feels inclined to speak? I would also like to shout out to Josh, who Shelly mentioned, because it's so nice he's here with us today. Josh set us up on a blind friend date. He told me, because he didn't know anything about Bold Beauty or what would become of this, but he said to me, because he knew I was raising a daughter with a disability, and he knew that Shelly had overcome so much, so he thought Shelly could help guide me to raise my daughter to be the best woman she could be. So he said, I want you to call this woman, and I want you to go and have lunch with her, which I really have not done that too many times in my life.
Blind friend date.
A blind friend date that worked out very well. So I called Shelly. We went to lunch. We struck up a friendship. And then she said, would you like to help with this project? And I've been a working professional now, I guess, for a long time. Like close to 30 years. And I love everything that I do, but there's nothing that I do that brings the caliber of joy to life that the Bold Beauty Project has brought to life. It is just such a beautiful place to be, and I'm so honored to be here with everybody tonight and to share the opportunity to talk about it. Who else has a question or something they would like to contribute? Thank you.
Hi. That's on. Hello. Okay. Hi, I'm Adriana. I've been Joy's friend since we were in first grade, which is probably why the Freudian slip of name. We've been like sisters since then. And I actually met Shelly for the first time at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, where I'm a medical student. Oh, cool. I didn't know the two of them were, yay!
Yay, the next generation.
So cool.
That means we get to retire soon. They're coming up.
But those student debts don't count your luck.
That's so cool.
But I met Shelly actually when she came to speak to my medical school class, and I didn't know that the two of them were linked in any way. And here I heard Shelly talking to my class about how physicians speak to specifically people with disabilities, people who've had disabilities their whole lives, and sort of that the way we speak is sometimes not the way that they would prefer to be spoken to. And also the fact that there's an element of humanity in being spoken to the way a person would want to be photographed or seen on a gallery wall, just as beautiful and just as photogenic as anybody else, and as beautiful as they are in every spot and shape of their lives. And at the time, I guess it didn't sink in for me that I thought, yeah, I know this. I see Shelly and every single person in this room as beautiful, and it didn't sink in to me that the person who had really done that for me was Joy. Wow. And I'd never seen anybody as being any more or less beautiful. I think because, in many ways, I always took pictures of her. And I never knew she hated her picture being taken. And at the time, especially when I heard Shelly speak, I was like, God, I've been taking pictures of her since we were little, and we did our hair together and our makeup together, and so beauty never came into my life in the same way as when I entered it from the perspective of a healthcare provider and thinking to myself, if only they had been there and had the same experiences and spoken to the same people, perhaps we'd talk to them differently, and perhaps we'd ask them about problems we don't ask about, things that trouble them in their daily lives, that trouble quite literally everybody. Nobody likes to talk about sex, whether you have a disability or not. And physicians are known to not ask about it. But it's something that we all should talk about, that we all should feel good about, how we view ourselves and how our spouses, our partners view us, and the respect we're given, and how we see each other, and how we see ourselves in the mirror. So I have Joy to thank for my blindness to some degree, because I had no idea it was a problem, really. I guess it was sort of a blindness that I had. And then Shelly, coincidentally, was the person who kind of opened my eyes. And then I went to see the Bold Beauty Project in person. And it's stunning how you see these pictures and you think, this is art, but art in a way that is made to wake us up and to make us attentive to the needs that we all have. And these women are brave, and they are stunning. By the way, these photos are absolutely gorgeous. I was a history of art major, so I was looking at the wall going, oh my God, I could never take pictures like this. And our silly pictures look all that much more beautiful to me because I didn't know that she was letting me take those pictures. That it wasn't just that she loved having her picture taken, that she didn't, and that she was letting me. And I was so happy to participate in anything that made someone feel beautiful.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Beautiful. Just tell them you're at Jackson.
So thank you so much for sharing that. That makes me cry, seriously. Like,
I had a glass of champagne. I think I can
did you?
cry a little bit.
I had a little wine too. But how do you think that is going to change you as practicing as a physician? This experience. Are you done with medical school?
No, I'm spitting distance.
Okay.
I'm close, but far. It feels far. No, I think it will change me in the sense that, broaching topics with people, whether they have a disability or not, becomes that much easier in a way, because you sort of start to see everyone not for their differences but also for their similarities, right? And so, we work at free clinics all the time. As students, we're required to work in free clinics all over the South Florida area.
Slaves.
And we're slaves. So we're free labor, but it's a duty of love. I mean, if we didn't love it, we wouldn't do it. It's really difficult. But at the same time, I see some of my classmates, and they can't, specifically if there's a person who does have a disability, I do notice that it is more difficult for them to ask about, are you dating? Are you being safe with the person that you're with? Do they treat you right? Do you feel respected? How are they, how is their interaction with you? Do you feel loved? And it's one of those things that I think is uncomfortable even if a person doesn't have a disability, but when they do have a disability, and this is the first time you're interacting with someone with a disability, it's very difficult. And you think that you have to sort of, maneuver around it and try to, like pussyfoot around the topic and say, well, are you online at all? And, you see people sort of start to stammer, and it's kind of like, well, no, because we all have the same issues, and I met my husband in high school, so that's a problem for me. I don't know what it's like to date online.
You got lucky.
I got lucky in the sense that I met him in high school, but I didn't have the quality experience of of relating to somebody who dates online. So when Joy told me she was dating online, my first thought was, oh my God, like, are you being, like, is everything safe? Like, who are you contacting? Who are you talking to? You know, but in my mind, she is my best friend and not, you know, a person with a disability that I am worried about for specific reasons because she has it. You just worry about a person.
Yeah.
And I think physicians will start to worry about the person rather than the disability.
Thank you.
I just want to explain to our audience that when we had the show in Miami, we couldn't really limit ourselves to 20 images. We ended up with 27 images. One was done actually in Qatar by a photographer with a model over there, and that model was actually voted one of the 100 most influential women. So we've got some very powerful models, but what Adriana is talking about is 20 of our images are currently on display at Jackson Memorial Hospital, which is obviously very powerful, so that when you're in those halls, you have time to really look at those images, appreciate them, and read them. 4, as you know, are here now, and we're so pleased that these images are staying in the public eye because a lot of work and love went into them, and it's great that 2 years later, these images are still out there. So we appreciate that opportunity. Wendy, and then Vince, did you have something to say? No. Wendy?
Okay, I'll say something.
Great. Okay.
My friendship with Joy and with Eva has been transformative. We came to Miami. Jeffrey met Eva through the tennis world. Through Facebook, then the tennis world. I came as a newly trained therapist, and they really opened up a big world to us in a major way. So I work as a therapist for the Jewish Community Services of South Florida. And I have to tell you, Joy, this passage that you wrote, I have cerebral palsy, I am an artist, I am a student, I am shy, I am creative, I am unique, I am joy. And then she ends it with, now that you know a little bit about me, let me reintroduce myself. I am joy, I am an artist, I am a student, I am shy, I am creative, I am unique. If we get close enough, maybe I'll even tell you that I have cerebral palsy. I cannot tell you how that passage has legs. And that has come into my therapy room many times. Many clients speak to me about their emotional disability and how are they going to go out into the world. And they don't feel confident. And I share your story. So it's very beautiful, and it's got huge legs going into many places. So thank you for the gift of your friendship.
Wendy, that's incredible. I really appreciate that, and you guys coming into our life has been such a blessing. It brings me back again to this book, which is Kind Acts of Strangers, and how ironic that Jeff would want to play in a tennis tournament, find our tennis tournament, come, win, right? He won first place, and such a beautiful friendship has come out of that. Wendy has another extraordinary son who is, believe it or not, an expert on Turkey, not the meat of the country. And he's currently living in London and advising people about Turkey and relationships with Turkey. So I did an interview with him for Bekindr about what is kindness like in the Middle East. So all these relationships and all these interconnections are so important. And we do have very big plans for Bold Beauty going forward. As Shelly said, we've got our next show in Wimberley, Texas coming up very soon, probably the very beginning of 2019. That show came to us because Patrice and I were at Art Palm Beach, and somebody admired our images, and they just picked up the ball and they're running with it. After that, multiple other cities, and we want to keep going. So we so appreciate everybody's participation here tonight, and interest, and support, and Praveen, you're dressed the best. What can we say? That guy rocking her out. So if anybody else has anything to say, if not, we can go into the hall. We have 4 images, just so you know.